Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're kicking off a new mini-series on the channel as I make a case and pitch for why each Primarch deserves to be recognised as the greatest. And today we kick off with Magnus the Red. A general spoiler warning for today as we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe. And so, with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Okay, so a few months ago, we did a week special where I ranked the Primarch's personal heresy stories from weakest to greatest. The Primarch journeys who took us through the full roller coaster of emotions, from epic highs to gut-wrenching lows. And I had Magnus the Red as the greatest Primarch journey. And well, if he has the greatest journey or personal story, then surely he is the greatest Primarch too. Right? Let's begin with his very creation. While all the Primarchs were intended to fulfill particular roles, Magnus was created for a singular purpose: to man the Golden Throne. Magnus's role was more important than any other, bar none. There is no compromise here. Several Primarchs could have been War Master. Perturabo could have been the Praetorian. Rogel and Guilliman were Lord Commander. And I could even envisage Lionel Johnson being a pretty good Emperor's executioner. However, only Magnus was made for the throne. Magnus the Red alone was made to inherit the full scope of his father's psychic ability. He was undoubtedly the second most powerful psyker in the galaxy. A being so powerful he was aware of his own creation, able to psychically speak with his father long before their actual reunion upon Prospero, and the only son able to psychically fly and explore the warp alongside his father. Magnus quite simply had a place within the Primarchs that was unique. Now, for all the reason for his creation, what of the reality of what transpired? Well, Magnus was a Primarch who sought knowledge, protected it, believed in education very much like his father. Prospero becoming undoubtedly a jewel of the Imperium, a bastion of learning second only to the throne world itself. He was in truth perhaps the most akin to his father of all the Primarchs. And so, while he may have been censured upon Nicaea for his exploits with the Immaterium, you could argue it was more from fear of what Magnus could do that his brothers rallied against him. And in truth, was it truly Magnus's fault, or the Emperor's? His brothers cried against psychic power, but in truth that wasn't the Emperor's concern. He was forced to act because of his great lie more than anything else. Because the simple reality was, he made Magnus too powerful. He could reach the deepest recesses of the Immaterium, encounter the beings the Emperor feared most, the Pantheon, and the Imperium wasn't ready. Not yet. And nor was Magnus. The Emperor not having truly prepared his Primarchs for the real threat, the real war. And that is no fault on Magnus. And so Nicaea wasn't truly a stop to psychic use for the Imperium, for we know that was the ultimate end goal. It was simply the Emperor trying to buy time to catch the rest of the Imperium up to Magnus the Red. Now yes, Magnus broke the Nicaea decree. His arrogance admittedly monumental even for a Primarch. Yet his loyalty remained pure. He attempted to intervene in Chaos's corruption of Horus Lupercal, appealing to his weakened brother to stay true. And when that appeared to fail, he immediately attempted to warn his father of the threat, of the danger, in the quickest, truest way possible, via his psychic power. Yes, this broke the Nicaea decree, but who can argue against Magnus's intentions here? Normal communication would have taken weeks, if that, if it would have even arrived at all. And even then, would it have been believed? Would it have been passed on to his father? A censured son, claiming warnings of the brightest, falling to betrayal. Magnus had no choice but to speak directly to his father, face to face. And this was always how they had done it, their own shared private realm. It's not Magnus's fault the Emperor hid the Webway project. To his credit, he was consumed with grief as soon as he realised what his actions had done. And he remained loyal, refusing to mount a defence against the knowing punishment coming. He actually cast a psychic shield around the entirety of Prospero, so none could see the Space Wolf fleet approaching. And he only finally joined the battle when he could bear the screams of his sons and people no more. Had Russ's orders not been manipulated by Lupercal, there is no doubt Magnus could have and would have helped the Emperor save the Webway project. The dream could have still been saved. Now Magnus lost to Russ. How can he be the greatest? Well, yes, he did. But as I've said before, Russ and the Space Wolves certainly seem to me to be pretty much the anti-Psyker Legion. Leman Russ is the executioner. I honestly believe he was made to be able to take out any brother and legion if he had to. That he could cater his approach depending on the threat. And it does have to be said, the Sisters of Silence were a huge help to the Space Wolves upon Prospero. It could have gone very differently had Magnus wanted to fight from the very beginning. However, even after this, despite the pain, Magnus couldn't bear to turn against his brothers, and in truth his father still. Remaining neutral throughout the heresy, even being instrumental to helping Vulcan return to Nocturne, to be reborn. And when he finally cast his lot in with Horus's side to join the Siege of Terra, in reality it was only to require his final shard remaining within the throne world. Even when travelling through the palace, despite technically being the enemy, Magnus continued to use his power to save the people, protecting them from falling bombs, saving hundreds of lives. And such is his power, he killed Malcador in an eruption of rage, without even meaning to. Malcador, the only other being known powerful enough to man the Golden Throne for a time too. And Magnus destroyed him in the blink of an eye. And even then, despite it all, the Emperor still offered Magnus redemption, a chance to stand by his side once more. Because that's how important, how powerful Magnus was. And he knew he had not been corrupted. In the Emperor's own words, with Magnus back by his side, the two of them could have scoured the traitors from Terra. Quite simply, Magnus the Red alone was powerful enough to turn the tide of the war. and it was an offer that Magnus wanted to accept with all his heart, never having willingly turned against his father. And it's an offer he would have accepted, were it not for the unacceptable cost. The death of his legion, the sacrifice of his sons. For what father could pay that price? Magnus, refusing the Emperor's offer, may prevent him from being the greatest Primarch in many eyes, but in staying loyal to his sons, refusing to abandon them, to me it makes him all the greater. He was a fraction of a second away from killing Vulcan upon the throne, the Lord of Drakes saved only by the intervention of his legionaries, which arguably would have given Magnus time to kill the Emperor himself, ending the heresy right then and there. And even after that, so dreaded was the threat of Magnus within the webway, that Vulcan had to enter the webway to stop him forcing the portal open, where Magnus slew his perpetual brother 100, 1,000 times over. And now, 10,000 years later, Magnus has literally pulled the planet of the sorcerers out of the warp, and is building a new empire within Imperium Sanctus. That's Imperium Sanctus, not Nihilus. So you want to talk about the greatest Primarch? Well then, the conversation begins with Magnus the Red. A Primarch who could take a lascannon blast just below his heart and still demolish a Baneblade. A Primarch who stopped a starship from falling from the sky, who psychically shielded an entire world, who could converse with the Emperor across the galaxy, who alone was made for the Golden Throne, who could sail the depths of the Immaterium alongside his father, who tried to avert the heresy before it even began, who never willingly betrayed his father despite the destruction of his home, who the Emperor offered redemption to at the height of the Siege of Terror, offered him a new legion, and who alone could have turned the tide of the war. I can't think of many, if any, Primarchs who can live up to the legacy of Magnus the Red. But as always everyone, what do you think? Is Magnus the Red the greatest of all the Primarchs? If so, why? And if not, why not? Do you feel Magnus is undoubtedly the most powerful of all the Primarchs? Is he perhaps the Primarch who had the most potential? That if the heresy had never transpired, it would have been Magnus who would have been undoubtedly the greatest, by his father's side, assuming his destiny of manning the Golden Throne? Or do you feel that Magnus was always destined to fall? That it was only a matter of time until he fell to the powers of chaos? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.